All right, I think this is the real stream. Um, I'll let everybody tell me if the audio is okay, even with the AC in the background. If not, I'll just turn it off. But I've never
All
seen
right,
that
I
happen
think this is the
before.
real stream.
I'm
Um,
99% sure that Restream.io was messing up and it was sending everything into a loop. So the political audio ad, which is funny because I hate politics, all of them equally. So, no sides taken. But and then when I tried to redo it, it also looped me. So I said, "Hey, can anybody hear me?" And then when I opened up the audio in the chat, it just said, "Hey, can anybody hear me?" a whole bunch of times. So yeah, I don't know. Sorry about all that. So I guess there's probably a bunch of people who dropped off assuming this wasn't going to happen. Dylan says the stream is still haunted. Let me listen here. I guess there's probably a bunch of people who dropped off assuming this wasn't going to happen. Dylan says the stream is still haunted. Let me listen here. I guess there's probably a bunch of people who dropped off assuming this wasn't going to happen. Dylan says the stream is still haunted. Let me listen here. I guess there's probably a bunch. I've never had this looping thing happen before. I'm just going direct OBS. Oh man. Hmm. You know what's really funny is that I changed nothing from the stream. What was it? Yeah, 2 days ago? Nothing changed. Not a single thing. You know what's really funny is that I changed nothing from the stream. What was it? I just I'm double checking my sources here, and the only thing I have added is my camera. So here, and then my headset, which is the same one I've always used. I think the looping stopped. All right. Absolutely crazy. Okay, so sorry everybody for all of that. I have no idea what happened. It was the same exact setup when that I had 2 days ago. So I really don't know. I don't know if it was Restream was the problem or if it was YouTube or what, but I guess we're doing it on YouTube because we're here and it seems to be working. So I guess let's get started. So what I have here is some of the Retro Game Restore clear shells. I purchased these. So anybody in the chat, if anybody asks and I'm not available to pay attention, please remind everybody these are paid for. So any opinions I have on these are going to be, well, I mean, all my opinions are honest anyway. But just I'm not. No one paid me to say anything, and I don't think anybody watching this stream would have ever thought otherwise. But yeah, so I'm excited to see these. I really want to know what they look like, and I want to do it on stream so I could have my honest reactions. And also because I like streaming and I like hanging out with all of you wonderful people. So, okay, 2 pieces. Wow, this is really cool. All right. Plus, there's a sticker here, which I don't think I'm going to use. But put all this stuff aside. And here's the bottom piece. Also very cool. So I'm going to put the bubble wrap back down so I can have a nice soft surface for the SNES that I'm going to be transferring. It's a little dusty, but otherwise in pretty excellent condition. here. Dylan said it's cool, but the only thing they worry about on aftermarket cases is does it feel as solid and quality as the OEM case? Well, I think we're going to find out in a bit. So this is a heavily modded SNES one chip. It's got a digital audio mod. It's got the Voltar board and a few other things. So let me pop this open. Let me put the keyboard out of the way so I don't accidentally lean on it and kill the stream, especially after all the trouble we've just had. Hopefully when I get to the new place, my new house, I'll be able to do something like set up a computer that's only streaming and capture and never anything else. But I have a feeling I'll still have these weird stream issues because I don't really understand where they come from sometimes. So I always use power screwdrivers to remove the screws and then regular screwdrivers to put them back in so you don't strip the plastic. One of the things that I've seen a lot in SNES minis is you see the plastic kind of pull in on the outside. I don't know if this shell has it, but I'll show you once I flip this over. Yeah, Kevin, I'm moving out to the burbs. I got mixed feelings because I really love New York, but I do not love having this amount of workspace as my only workspace. So it's either this or my kitchen table, which is, multi-purpose. Okay. That came off without a hitch. All these screws. That's 6. Oh no, you're moving to Lawn Guy Land? Yeah, I kind of grew up in a town that was sort of in the woods and then moved around to Bridgeport, a bunch of cities and stuff like that. So for me personally, like, I'm just used to doing lawns and stuff like that. I did that my whole life. These past couple of years, living in apartments has been a break that I feel like I've absolutely earned. Because my entire life from childhood, I was the one that mowed the lawn, shoveled the snow, and did all that stuff. So I had a very well-earned break for the past almost 10 years. And now I'm back to being that guy again, probably for the rest of my life. Unless I get bored, can't stand it, and move right back to the city. Which is, not impossible. Bridgeport, like in Sneaky Pete. I don't think I've ever seen Sneaky Pete. This is Bridgeport, Connecticut. One of the places 50 Cent got shot in. So when I'm taking these apart, I always carefully undo the switch, and then pull this out all as one piece, just by sliding the metal out. And then I have a trick that I always use to get it back in, because that would have been tricky over the years. If I manage to take this apart without dropping and losing all the parts, I'll be able to show that when I put it back together. I have I have one of these magnetic things. These are the screws for the top, and I don't remember what any of these go to. So as I'm packing up, I think these are for a Sega Genesis that is at Jose's house, and that's it. I don't know why I would have shorty case screws or anything like that. So if I can't find what they're missing to, before I move, I guess they're going in my bag of random screws, which I've been collecting since high school. Hey Axel, nope, not too late. Just getting started. I'm going slow, both because I'm enjoying hanging out with the chat, and I just want to take my time and do it right. There's no rush. I had a few beers last night with the band Answer Infinity, good friends of mine, and I'm not going at full speed today anyway. That screw's always kind of a pain back here. Ah, I dropped it, but I see it. Hold on. Got it. All right, score. Hey, thanks, Dave. Appreciate the super chat. Yeah, Nicole. When you go through too, like it's funny how you could look at some screws and be like, "Oh, I know exactly where that came from," and others, I'm just like, I don't ever understand why I would have had a screw that looks like that. Maybe I found one on the ground one time and was like, "Ah, I'll put it in my, my screw holder and hope I figure this out." That screw not completely out. There we go. Kaido J wants to know if I'm getting a Super Famicom PAL shell as well, or just this one. I did purchase the other one, but they're still in production as far as I know. So the only ones I'm doing today are the SNES one, not the Super Famicom version. Ed wants to know if anybody's going to be doing replacement plastics for the controller ports. Not that I know of, and I don't know how I'm going to feel about the mismatched color. I guess we'll all find out in a few moments. So can't quite see it. I don't want to take it apart just for this purpose, but there is a digital audio mod. This is the one Firebrand X did, coming right off the main audio chip. This has a Voltar board, which has the attenuation already set on it. And some people always ask when that they see pictures like, "Oh, is the board not finished?" Well, in this model that Voltar did, he included pads for the Mini, for the restore of S Video as well, and just didn't populate them for these. But I think a lot of people were like, "Hey, my board's missing components," so he's just like tired of tired of telling people, "No, no, it's not." Um, put this back. So this went here. I often forget those. And this goes right here. Keep it exactly like the original. And let me grab a hand screwdriver. When I get to my new place, I got to figure out a way to keep this as efficient as this is without having to climb through bins. So this desk, quote unquote desk, is really 8 small Target plastic bins with a full, like a standing desk thing on it. It broke a few weeks ago, but I used to be able to grab the clip and raise and lower it. So I like the efficiency of this setup, but hopefully I don't have to crawl on the floor every time I want to get a new tool next time. Okay, so how that looks so far. Yeah, Ed, I'm going to the burbs about an hour and a half. Well, I was about to say an hour and a half away, but depending on traffic, it could be an hour and a half. It could be 4 hours. It could be 90 minutes. All right, everything seems to be lining up okay. No problems whatsoever. I didn't have to trim anything. It's got the posts in case this was the model that has the separate audio on here. So it's about as simple as of a solution as it gets. And don't worry, I have other neat toys to show after this too once we get this assembled. For anybody curious, this isn't just an RF shield. This is also the heat sink for the 7805, which I replaced for the 78S05. I also recapped this one too, just to make it as good as possible. But it would be nice to take that off and really see directly in. But the two problems are number one, you need a heatsink, and also number two, there are voltage regulators that don't require heat sinks or could require smaller ones, but they add some interference to most analog video signals. So it's really not it's not recommended. My screwdriver is like 20 years old and worn, so I'm not using this in the power mode. I'm just hand turning it, but it's a better fit for the screws. And I'm hand tightening them. I'm not going too far. It's kind of funny that you can see the screws through the plastic, and can't really. This one doesn't really have it, but some plastics, if you tighten them too much, it'll pull the plastic down a little bit, so there'll be little divots, which is why you don't want to use a power screwdriver and you don't want to tighten it too much when you're doing these. Okay. One trick for anybody bolting in original plastics is you set the screw in and then you turn it kind of a turn back until you feel it pop a little bit, and then you start tightening it. I don't really feel that with brand new plastics that haven't had their threads already dug into. So, but I'm still trying to do it anyway, just because, like, yeah, it's not catching the thread because there's no thread in there. You're making it on this new plastic. How big is the new place? Put it this way, my entire apartment now will be the size of the office I'll be working out of, and it's going to be an office slash I was going to say movie theater, but don't think too fancy. I'm not spending $1 million on this, but it's essentially what it's going to be. So, and it's cheaper. It's significantly cheaper than than the place I'm in now. All right, so this looks awesome right here. I mean, absolutely awesome. You can see the Voltar mod looks good. I'm glad I took my time and did a good job on that one. Uh, ABO hiccups. Am I going to add M Classic in the N64 digital review? No, I hate that thing. I've almost never seen it do something worthwhile. I might show it if I have time, just to compare it to some of the other options, but generally speaking, that thing's not for me. So I have mixed feelings about this. I'll come back to some of the other questions in the chat, but I want to ask this first. What's everybody's thoughts? Do I leave this shield on, which doesn't really need to be here, or do I leave it off so that you could see the chips and then just hold this aside? So I'll go back and answer questions from the chat while you all ponder that, and if you have a moment, give me your opinion. But going back up here, uh, Axel wants to know if there's such a thing as an SNES HDMI mod. There is an open source project out there by somebody named Opitus, and I'm so sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. And there's potential for it. It doesn't exist, and I was supposed to have worked on it almost a year ago, but with lockdown, mailing delays, the chip shortage, it's completely stalled. And the parts are right now with Jose, but all the missing parts are part of the chip shortage. So it's I would say there's going to be a year between now and when we'd even get testing to the point of HDMI. But what we will be testing is the 3-chip model SNESs with this board that Opitus made should consistently look as good as 1-chips. And that's going to be the first step. And once that gets accomplished, then we'll look into taking the digital signals and seeing if there's anything to be done. But it might be part digital to digital, part analog to digital, and at that point, it's really not worth it. You would much rather get a RetroTink 5X and then a decent mod. So good question. But all right. Let me there's a few people say leave it on, but I think most people say off. Nicole, does the shield impact video quality at all? So these all right, I'm gonna make sure I'm not talking out of my ass here, but I'm 99% sure that these in most consoles, even things like the Sega Genesis, were designed for FCC regulations in the US, and that's why the Master System and the Genesis for Japanese consoles don't have any shielding, because it doesn't affect the video quality. It just, if you sit this on top of your VCR, on top of your TV, next to your radio, and next to your 8-track player or whatever back in the day, that could have interfered with other devices. Now around the RF box it could help, but I don't think that on the SNESs this would do anything at all. They have them on the Japanese versions though, which is the only reason why I was a little bit hesitant, because but I think I'm gonna try it. And I've done all of my captures with this thing. I have all of my equipment here, so we'll be able to test it afterwards. I think I'm gonna leave it off for now. So let me just carefully put the screws in and make an effort to not tighten them down too much, knowing that the screws were in here with some metal between them. Kevin Sims, do one chip 101 models have the same quality as OG Shell 1 chips? So, I think you might be confused, or I might be reading your question wrong, but SNS CPU 1 chip, there's O1, O2, O3. All three are identical in quality. And I've tested well over 50, probably closer to a lot more than that at this point, to be honest. And there is a difference in quality between 10 of them, but if you line up 10 one chip O2s, 10 one chip O1s, it's the same difference. So there's no difference between model revisions. It's just difference between individual ones, and that has to do with a lot of factors: age of the unit, age of the capacitors, tolerance in components. A lot of tolerance on these components around the board. They could be 5%, 10%, 20% tolerance, which is why you might not ever have two that look identical. And you could do something crazy like replace all of these surface mount things with 1%, but I think you're getting into territory that doesn't really matter at that point. Um, Good question though. ABO hiccups, are the two tabs removed? Yeah, I'll show that in a second. I want to get this one assembled and then I'll go through the top part of it. Okay. Yeah, I've never been able to get into 8 tracks either. I got a new record player a friend of mine got me as a housewarming gift that I'm gonna set that thing up on stream. Obviously won't be able to play music because I'll get copyright struck, but I got a cleaner with it and everything else, so I'm really excited to set that up. And I'm probably gonna get a decent cassette player, but I think for me it's quality digital recordings and records are probably gonna be my favorite things. Um, and funny, speaking of copyright strikes, I got a copyright infringement notice on the last stream for using my own song that I own 100% of the rights to, and that I've already notified YouTube and all of the other places that I own both channels and both songs. So I have no idea what the heck happened there, but I'm in the middle of appealing that with YouTube right now to use my own thing. I think I just put this in upside down. Did I? See how that sits. Yeah, I did put that in upside down. That's funny. The original model SNES shell, like I have instead of the mini. Well, there's many different model motherboards, so if yours doesn't say one chip on it, it's not going to be as good quality, and some are pretty terrible, to be honest. Now you could fix a lot of them, you could reduce the jail bars and all that stuff, but you're at the moment without any modifications, the one chips are going to look a lot better. All right, so here's my little trick: get everything put in, get everything lined up, but don't put the spring in the latch. Leave the spring kind of hanging, and then you come over here. You kind of see where the holes are, and you insert all of this first. So make sure everything's lined up, and then you pull this metal part back. When I used to try to fight with it, so this clip was in first, I would always mess things up, and there would always be issues. So that is just the easiest solution to that. And the other thing too is if this gets a little floppy and the spring gets too old, you could, instead of putting the metal piece down here in its current slot, you could move it just a little bit back to the middle, and it gives it more tension. I wouldn't do that unless you really needed it though, because that'll wear out the spring faster. But it's getting a little floppy. But I've seen ones that are like the play is like this, whereas this one it's only about that much. Um, so here's going to be the interesting part. Now, the bottom shell that we took out, there's no parts left in it, not even this little tab here. And on this, okay, so it is requiring the other tab, but there aren't any other parts. So let me just grab that off of this. Would have been cool if they had a clear one of these as well, but I understand that's another mold and another cost and all that stuff. That line up. Maybe there is another one, because this doesn't really fit. Or am I just doing it backwards? Yeah, just doing it backwards. All right. So on the top, here's where we have some other things that we're going to need to switch over. So I'm going to put this aside for a second, just knowing that we have to move on to the other part. Grab the top shell. So buttons, the flaps, and on the inside. Now, let me look in the box and see if they included something like this, because I think this is the part that determines really if you could use the other shells or not, the Super Famicom style. Now, these are obviously cut the FX Pack Pro so that they'll fit on everything, but let me see. Let me check what else we have here in the box. And there's definitely some other things I could show after we're done with this that they sent me. Not seeing anything so far. Sorry, the box is just out of view of the camera. I'll be back. I'll be back over there in a second. I just want to open up everything because I don't want to be like the live stream I did with Greg where I had the part I needed right next to me and I just didn't look in the right spot. No, none of these have the insert in them, so all right. So that's a little disappointing. That means that if you want a region-free insert, you're gonna have to 3D print your own. Um, so it's not, it's not the worst thing in the world. I certainly appreciate the detail that went into this, but it would have been nice to not have to reuse this stuff. It's been a long time since I've taken these apart, so let's take it apart and see what mistakes I make on camera. I'm also going to arrange these screws over on my air conditioner over here off camera in the exact order and place that I took them out from. That way when I come back, if there's anything different shapes, I don't have to worry about it too much. All right, let's see how this comes apart. It's been a long time since I've took the top part off one of these. I just haven't had to at all. Okay, so there's the spring there. Let me get tweezers. Axel wants to know if I've heard about the Super Nintendo arcade system. I have not. Or maybe I have, and I'm not 100% sure what you're referring to. You have any links or info? All right, so let me get the spring over here. I think I'm gonna have to. What about that with the spring as well? All right, so we got to put in that first, then these. Let me get these things out. Trying to be super gentle. I have a history of just manhandling and breaking stuff like this, so I'm being a little extra cautious because I don't want to mess anything up. Let me try a little bit of pliers and my fingers. Ah, that worked immediately. Okay. So I don't mess this up, do these exactly as is. Put that here. So here's the top shell. Looking pretty good. Actually, that original shell was in really good condition. I'll probably donate that to Brooklyn Video Games or something for when they have yellowed shells. And that was the same flap there, and I just had to make sure to keep the spring down. Place this. That's getting a little wiggly, so let me... All right. So I guess... Hold on one second. I want to do a side-by-side here. I think I only have four or five Super Nintendos here. I used to have quite a lot more. So these are where the Super Nintendo emblems go. And let me stick that out of frame here. So right here, that would be this. So you don't need it. They built that part into it, which makes sense. So let me very carefully bolt some of this down in the same exact order that I took it out in. I want to make sure I'm not tightening anything down too much and that everything kind of still falls into place. So far, so good. Yeah, Dave, these shells really are great. I loved the one for the PC Engine that I got. And, you know, this isn't together yet, but so far, it looks really good. The only question I'm going to have is how do I feel about using the original plastic pieces like this? Um, I honestly don't know. I mean, it's so far so good, but we'll see what happens when we get it all together. Once again, for anybody joining, I'm using my power screwdriver because that bit is the perfect fix, or perfect fit, but I'm not using the power mode. I'm doing it by hand because I don't want to over tighten any of this stuff and cause a dimple or a crack on the other side. So I'm just kind of hand tightening it in. Maddie wants to know how much the shells are. I think they're, after shipping, it was like 120. But check the link in the description depending on which shell you want, and I believe they're still available. All right, let's flip this over and take a look. So that's pretty cool. Bit of a shame about this part though, because while I do kind of like the look of the gray underneath it, I do wish that they had the tabs cut here, so that you could keep your original. But if you wanted support for Super Famicom Japanese games, you just cut those tabs. That's all you do. The FX Pack Pro has these things, so you don't need it. But otherwise, you would have to snip them for the other games to fit in. Yeah, Dylan, so I think you got to put it into perspective, and I mean this respectfully, right? These are really well-made pieces of plastic. These aren't 3D prints. These are things that took a lot to design and make sure that you're done right, and they're made in very small quantities of about 500 each. So the price isn't cheap. I would never try to claim that they're cheap, but at the same time, it's not unfair at all. And when you're doing injection molding like this, they're usually done in quantities of at least 1,000, but usually 5 or 10,000. And that's why you're able to get things that are of this quality for $50 or $20 for things like the handheld shells. And that'll never happen for something this size in these quantities, just because of the complexity of the tooling and everything that goes into them. So totally fair to say that they're expensive, but they're not overpriced, considering what it is that they are. Get that in a better frame here. I mean, this looks really awesome. I like this a lot. Uh, Let me screw it together so I could flip it around without worrying about the thing coming apart, but this looks really good. Uh, yeah, you know what? Before I put this together, Dave pointed out something rather important. With these plastic pieces in, you can't see the chips at all. Even from the side view, like you could see that it's a one chip, but that's really it. So, it's a good point. It's a good point, Dave. So I think because you can't see them anyway, and because it's a piece of metal that was even on the Japanese version, it wasn't just on the US version for compliance, I think I am going to put. Oh, I didn't even screw that screw down all the way anyway. So I will put the metal shield on. ABO Hiccups wants to know if I have a WoW stick. Yep, right here. It's absolutely awesome. Um, it's meant for smaller screws. When I first talked about it, a lot of people were kind of pissed because they were like, "Oh, I bought this thing and it won't take out my console screws." Not really meant to. It's meant for a lot of the other smaller stuff. So I use this one, which I just use. Let me get to use Eneloop batteries in there, and they last a long time. I use that for the bigger stuff, and then I use the WoW stick for the smaller ones. Dave says they make a more powerful WoW stick. Huh, interesting. I gotta try that out one day. All right, a little spring trick. Pop that sucker right in. Also, always be careful screwing these in because these posts pretty easy for them to crack. And I'm not talking about specifically this shell. I'm just talking about any plastic standoff like that. I've seen tons of these things cracked on original consoles. So, all right, good catch, Dave. Thanks for reminding me. I probably wouldn't have noticed until I got the entire thing bolted back together. But it's pinched, everything looks like it lines up okay. So now let's get the other screws back in. I mean, this looks really cool. I'm not even done putting it together yet. I think this thing looks really cool. Hold on one second. I can't hear your message. I think somebody was gonna join the stream right now, but their audio wasn't working. So let me just see. Oh, no, that was a butt dial. All right. Sorry for the interruption. Butt dial. Thought we were gonna have a guest on the stream. Guess not. Monty said they actually had trouble driving the screws into the PC Engine shells. And that was just because they were using a little iFixit driver. Once they had a bigger driver, there was no problems. Yeah, because there aren't any threads. I don't know if you could see that, but because there aren't any threads yet, when you're putting these in, you're creating the threads with the screw. So you're going to need to put a little bit of pressure, and that's why I kind of had my hand propping it up. Getting tricky. There we go. So with these case screws, I do have to put a bit of pressure, but I'm just waiting to see that the seam is connected. Now it's not separated and looks good on the other side. So I'm going to keep going. Monty actually came down to the Brooklyn Video Games, well, Arcade Brooklyn's new location for the opening. Very cool to meet you, Monty. Always cool to meet everybody in person, to be honest. I don't think I've ever had a bad incident with meeting anybody. There was one incident with a modder, but I'll tell that on a podcast someday because not only do I think everybody get a kick out of it, I want to make sure my buddy Lou hears it because he was there and accidentally caused a ruckus. Made me smile a lot. Not a big ruckus, a nice ruckus. Oh, must have been another Monty? Sorry, my friend. All right. Last one. I'm not doing this painfully slow for suspense. I just really want to be careful and make sure that the shell comes out nice. And same thing. So you can see the separation. You want to screw it down until it's solid. Maddie D, that seems quite risky. Can't the plastic crack quite easily from tapping? Only if it's built wrong. If it's the wrong size, uh, then yeah, definitely. Because, or if you use the wrong screw. But I think in this case, I think Retro Gamer Stores designed them to be the right size. And you're, oh, well, look at that. It's a gross close up of my fingernail. Sorry about that. The head was stripped right off. An aging screw. Well, that stinks. Well, hmm. I guess let's power it on and just double check everything, but that's interesting. I think what I would have to do now is unscrew the case again, then use pliers to pull that one out, and then pull a screw out of one of my other ones here. I think I might end up doing that. So, but let's take a look at how this works first. And I might even do that off camera because it's even less entertaining to watch me mess with this a pair of pliers than it is to do this. But with the glare, it's kind of hard to photograph, but these things look really good. Here's how it looks with the front piece. So you see the flex cable from the factory. You see the gray plastic here that's original. The light. Let me turn that on so you can see what it looks like with the light. Yeah, so this is a one-chip O2, and this has a Voltar board, which I could show in a second, because it's a clear case, as well as one of the Firebrand X. That's the optical audio out, or digital coax audio, and that's the Voltar board right there. And when I power it on, that's how it looks glowing. That's cool. That's very cool. Let me see if I can get into focus. Hey, Jimmy's here. What's up, Jimmy? How you doing, man? Jimmy says he'd prefer live streams that are a better time for him. Well, Jimmy, when I'm in the new place and I don't have to worry about making too much noise in the middle of the night, I will absolutely do middle of the night streams for you, just for you, and you know everybody else that's on that in that time zone. But yeah, this is definitely cool, and yeah, Maddie, it does look like the insides are floating. Try to get it a little more centered. So, I'm going to show some other things in a second, but my conclusion on this, if your case looks like this, you probably don't need one of these. Or if you do, make sure that you give your original case to somebody who could really use one. If your case looks like this, and it's a little bit yellowed, yeah, I actually think this would be perfect because, you know, these will still look good. Your, you know, the flap usually doesn't get too bad, and on the end of these controller ports, you could, you know, they're not the best looking, but you could probably clean those up a little bit. Now, I'm going to get a couple other things. Hold on a sec. So now, if your case looks like this, this is definitely a must buy. And I bought this one specifically because it was a giant turd. And I mean, look at all of this. I've seen a lot of the yellowed ones just crack completely apart. And this is going to be an excellent candidate for the other ones. So, you know, if you have something that looks as terrible and beat up as this, which this works by the way, but if you do, then these cases are about as good as you could ever ask for. I'll be doing another live stream when the Super Famicom ones come in, but I mean, what a giant upgrade from, you know, if yours is all gross like that. Once again, though, if yours looks like this, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely an upgrade, and people who have yellowed shells would still prefer that they had something that looked like this, but that's up to you. But either way, if your shell is mint, I would just enjoy the fact that you have a mint condition original shell. The Super Famicom, I don't even remember what that was. And to be honest, I didn't even take it apart because I know as soon as I do, it's going to shatter in a million pieces. There's no, I've seen this every time I've taken them apart. It's happened to me at Brooklyn Video Games. It's happened to me at a lot of different places. So, some surprises. Retro Game Restore also sent me the smoke shell, which looks really good. So because I have to take the other one apart to fix the screws anyway, I think I'm going to do just the top swap just so you can see the differences for those. Ash, do I see many SNES consoles over there that has a separate module for the sound chip? Yes, yes I do. It's all of the original ones have that. So let's flip this over and see. And I even have a few more, not as exciting surprises, but I do have a few more surprises after this as well. So actually, because I'm unscrewing, I'm just going to use the power feature. As long as you don't scrape it. Oh, so much easier. Ooh, did you hear that? Gonna do that by hand. I wasn't catching. Satoshi Matrix. Any plans for the NES, AV Famicom, etc.? An AV Famicom clear shell would be awesome. To be honest, I think Retro Gamer Store will do anything there's a demand for, but he has to sell 500 every time he makes something new. With, no discussion. That's the very minimum. To be honest, though, it would be really nice if for whatever reason there was a demand for 2,000 or 5,000. And I actually think, correct me if I'm wrong here, chat, but I actually think that the Nintendo 64 would be something that a lot of people, based on the popularity of the Warrior 64 just for the shell, I think that's something a lot of people would be really interested in. So, all right, so I have 5 of the 6 screws. Man. And of course, it had to be in the front where you could see it. I don't think I'm going to be able to get that out. That's kind of a shame. Well, at least it's not keeping these pieces in or anything like that. So, all right, well, let me put this aside for a moment. And I'll even put that aside, too. I'm running out of spaces to put stuff. Luckily, I have boxes all over the place from moving. All right. Yeah, Satoshi, I thought N64 would have had less demand for replacement cases simply because they stayed in really good condition, most of them at least. But based on the popularity of the Warrior 64, I was definitely wrong because people were really excited for a new case. And it's funny, after my video came out, a lot of people messaged them saying, "Can I just buy the case? I don't want any of that other crap." And I don't know what they decided, but hopefully they'll stick to what they're good at and not make crappy, laggy boards for it. All right. One of them. Yep. So I really am running out of spaces to put stuff. All right. I'm gonna take the stuff out of this to use in the other shell to compare and contrast how they look with each other. And I also kind of want to see what happens when you have a slightly yellowed front in this. So, this is going to turn into experiment time here. So, I guess let me get this back in focus. Better. Transparent shell makes it easier to see if the console is full of dead bugs. Yeah, yes it does. I will never forget that one time at my old Brooklyn office, I had Ben Fong over, and he was going to help me with a PS2 Slim, and he gets the case open, and he starts screaming, "Nope, nope, nope, nope," and he runs away from it. There was about 50 dead, encrusted cockroaches on the inside of it. Somebody had just given it to me. They're like, "Hey, you like old video games, right? Here, do you want this?" And of course, I said yes. And yeah, that cracked me up. That look on his face was amazing. And then I was actually dead broke then. I had just lost my job. And I knew that if we modded it, I could get a few bucks for it. So I sat there with isopropyl and a brush, scrubbing cockroaches and cockroach crap and guts out of out of that thing so that I could mod it and sell it. I'll tell you, whoever got it, you would have never ever known there was anything in there. The thing looked beautiful when I was done with it. Peace out. That out as well. So this case isn't in the best condition, but these pieces kind of are. So this is a really good way to test that out. All right. So when I was doing this before, that was the easiest way to do it. That worked fine. You don't need the Super Nintendo piece. Beautiful. Out. Wow, you could really see the difference there. Okay. I'm going to swap these two. And it's only going to take a second. I'm sorry to bore everybody to death, but I want the ones that are a little more beat up to be in the clear one and not in the smoke clear, because this will obviously hide a lot more of the discoloration. So I'm just going to take a very quick second to do that as well. Hold on. There we go. Oh, forgot about the spring. Found the tweezers to be a lot easier for that. Let me grab those. Yeah, way easier. All right, switching these over. Oh, don't forget the flap. That's right, to hold that down, I used a screwdriver to hold the flap down while I was screwing this down. It's amazing how even the simplest things, once you've done it once or twice, it's just even simpler. All right, so flip it over, make sure I didn't forget anything. Nope. So if you're used to these things and you start taking apart a lot of them, you start to get to know exactly when you could stop with a power screwdriver. So I said before, always do it by hand, but as you can see here, as long as you have some familiarity with this, it's only if you just let it grind down to the end that there would be a problem. And these screws are already tapped, so I wouldn't do that on the smoke shell that I'm about to put these in. Captain Spiders, did I forget the smoke case? No, no, patience, my friend. We're getting there. We're flipping things around so that the ones that potentially could look worse are in the clear one, so that way we don't hide any of the defects. Okay. Yeah, that looks perfect still. So now for the smoke case. I'll line this up so it's a little bit better on camera for you. Forgot the spring on the other one, but we can get to that. It's not too big a deal. I'm going to take these screws out because I don't want them going in sideways or putting pressure in or anything like that. So same thing, fixing this here. Screwdriver to hold the plate down while I center it. All right. Since this is the first time we're screwing into this, we got to self-tap it, so it'll be a little more snug. Ian said they'd paint the gray parts black if it wasn't so obvious that they'd be painted. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good opportunity for somebody to deal with stuff on the inside. You could do 3D printed, and while I'm a giant fan of everything 3D printed, you're going to see a very big contrast in quality between these prints and something 3D printed. So I actually wouldn't recommend that this time unless somebody like Greg with a print farm and different styles of printers could figure out how to do one that's a little on the smoother side, or the opposite, a matte finish that's designed for these parts to look matte. So like it won't even look 3D printed, it'll almost look more intentional. I guess if that makes sense. Do I think the analog will make analog DAC Pro with both HDMI output and analog output for dual? No, never. Absolutely never. That's not at all what they're concerned with doing. And I believe if you wanted to, you could use an HDMI splitter to split the output in well, you'd have to spoof the EDIT as well. There's potential of doing it that way, but so that you could, go to a CRT and stream that way, but unfortunately, I just don't think that's something they ever planned on. And I was really disappointed too, because when I first talked to Kevtris about the DAC, long before it was announced, he said something like we had talked about adding optical audio output and a bunch of other features because like, hey, if you're gonna have a device designed for stuff like that, why not add everything? And even if you have to charge a little more, but I guess they decided not to. Yeah, these look awesome. These both look awesome. I guess if your plastics are a little bit more yellowed, um, the smoke would cover it up. But honestly, this is, I mean, they both look really good. The only other thing I guess I could try is let me grab the so these are the... No, that was the wrong one. I have so many Super Nintendos open, I can't find what I was looking for. All right. So here is the slightly yellowed one. It's not bad at all. It's just slightly yellowed. On Axel had a super chat here. Thank you again, by the way. Satoshi Matrix had a question about retrobriting. Um, so I don't like retrobriting. I think that I don't like it for a few reasons. First, I think that a lot of people who promote it don't ever really talk about what it looks like a year or two later. And sometimes they come out perfect, and it's totally cool, and it's not a problem. But other times they do not. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't talk about, especially the YouTubers that like to get their clicks on their videos and then not really worry about anything after. That's a rude thing to say, but it's also an accurate thing to say. And I've seen the ill effects of it. So what I would do, which I might do later on today, just as a neat experiment, is put a tiny little bit of that peroxide on it, and and leave it in the sun for maybe 15 minutes, not even, and then doing it that way, kind of decide, all right, is it good enough? Did it hurt it? Did it not hurt it? So here is the slightly yellowed ports. Focus. Yeah, like that PS1 shell I tried. Yeah, I got really frustrated with the comments on that one and smashed it to bits. And then I laughed really hard when people accused me of smashing a perfectly good console when not a single part on that was salvageable. But, so yeah, in all honesty, even with the slightly yellowed, it's not as noticeable as one would think. But let me see how it looks with this shell. So obviously, this doesn't match, but we can get a decent contrast. I actually think the yellowed ports stand out a little bit more with the smoke top. I'll flip it upside down. Because with this being clear, it's almost brighter and you don't notice as much. Any thoughts in the chat? Any other angles anybody would like me to take a look at? Going back to the conversation about retrobriting cartridges, though, I think one thing you might want to look into, uh, if you like to display your cartridges and it's something that's important to you, I think you could look into replacement shells and reprint labels and save your original. That way you always have the original. You don't need to worry about ruining it. It's already yellowed, I know, but like you don't have to mess with it at all. Um, I would do that, and that way you could have, because you can get brand new SNES shells that are in different colors, they're clear, whatever you want, and you could get very good reprint labels. And there's even people out there that make reprint labels that say reprint in a way that, that makes it look really cool. So no one's gonna think that you're just trying to put one over on them. So that's definitely something I would consider just for the heck of it. But yeah, that ended up looking pretty good. They say that sunbrighting does actually work now. Honestly, Ash, that's the one where I would try the least. That's the one where you basically leave your plastic in direct sunlight for days, and that's the one that has the most long-term negative effects. People have said they've come back a year later and their consoles just fall apart. In fact, this is essentially what happens to consoles that are left in direct sunlight a year later. It just completely falls apart. It cracks. I guarantee when I open this, all of these posts, like you can even see that's cracked right there. Like, that's a perfect example of what happens. So that's the one thing I definitely wouldn't do. Funny, the guy that did a video on that, I guess he'd stopped tweeting on Twitter, and a bunch of people blamed me for it. I never said a single bad thing about that person. I don't know what the heck happened there, but oops. So yeah, that's the only other thing I would add is that I assumed that the darker shell would hide the discoloration, and it's the opposite. The clear makes the discoloration look a little better. or a little less noticeable, at least on camera here. And yeah, let me put the clear shell back one more time just to see the contrast of it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think I will just put a little bit of Retrobrite on this, just that peroxide solution, and leave it in direct sunlight. You know what? What the heck? I'm here. I have all of you wonderful people here, and I have more things to show. So let me do that real quick now, if I could find it. Just give me like 30 seconds. Found it. Oh, my bottle of Zach, all ready to go. So take these out. Uh, Find a careful place to put it. So let's see how I'm going to do this. The only parts that really have a problem are around the controller ports themselves. There's nothing on the inside that does it. All right, let's remember this orientation. Top down just like this. I'm going to leave this over here in the same position. So what I think I'm going to do, of course the sun's just going behind the clouds right as I do this, but all right. Here's a little bit. Just a little. Oh, and it was on the inside too. I'm going to try not to get it on the spots that aren't discolored. Ew, it's on my hand. I'm going to go wash my hands after this. This is Salon Care 40 or something like that. Whatever Voltar told me to get years ago. All right, I'm going to go place that into what I hope is direct sunlight. The clouds just came over. And I'm going to go wash my hands because this stuff's gross. Give me about 1 minute. All right, so it is now outside. Let me check the chat, see what I missed. Um, I'm not going to say that out loud, Ash. Ebuyer's vid says I don't like retrobriting, proceeds to retrobrite. Yeah, but I mean, I'm pretty sure I made the context clear as to why I want to do it now and why I wouldn't want to do something like a a full game or something like that, a lot could go wrong. But I think I think in the context of the question before, taking the label off, even if you just leave it for a few moments and then trying to put the label back on, I still wouldn't do that for the cartridge. I would probably just get a new one. For your consoles, am I still here? OBS just gave me a disconnect reconnect error. All right, cool. Even YouTube gave me a weird thing. I think I must have lost internet for a second. I wonder if there was like a brownout in the neighborhood or something like that. It's possible. It's really hot out. Oh, geez. The sun just came out. I realized there's a shadow over it. Hold on. Hold on. that's that's another reason to be careful of doing anything like that. I almost left it in the shadow so it would have lightened at the wrong pattern. All right. So while we're waiting, Retro Game Restore also sent me these to check out. And if I believe or if I'm remembering correctly, these are cases that will work with different types of cartridge games. And some of the ones that it'll work with should be the Sega Genesis. So let's check these out. Most of my Genesis games are already cased, but the Menacer game never had a case to it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now you could stand them side. Well, it's a bubble wrap here. You can stand it sideways if you want to display them that way. That's pretty neat. I also have two games that somebody sent me a while back that just just to send me a bunch of stuff. It was a really nice gesture, and I saved them, and I actually end up using them for testing a lot because they're not boxed and they're right here. So Axel said needs end labels. Yeah, let me try to get closer so you could see here. Um, Hey, focus during a live stream. So boring and stupid looking. Sorry. All right. So there's indentations here. So if you wanted to, you could absolutely make a wraparound label for it that goes all the way across. So it would fold. I mean, just like the Genesis label, but in the opposite direction. So I think that's pretty cool. Captain Spears, do those cases for the games have UV protection? That is an excellent question that I do not know the answer to. Oh, somebody paid $80 for this game at one point. Light Crusader? Interesting. I can focus here. So I'm assuming this is the only way that they go together, because these have these little flaps on the inside. I don't think I could put it this way. That's kind of what made sense to me at first, but well, I mean, I guess you could. Yeah, I guess you could orient it either way. For me personally, though, um, well, no, I guess that makes sense because you could see the label a little better this way. I guess let me get two of the same ones so we could do side by side. So how about I had it that way? So let me do it this way. Yeah, I don't know which I like better. Um, I honestly don't know if there's a right way to do it, although there does seem to be a bit more space. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you can see my finger, but it's already getting discolored from the salon care, even though I've already washed my hands before I touched anything else. Hope I don't stain these carts or anything like that. But so yeah, there might be only one way these things go. It might just sit this way. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that case is just a little more separated. Let me swap those just to see. Does anybody care? I mean that in a really nice way, a really genuine way. Does anybody care about orientation or which way or how they look, or am I just amusing myself taking things in and out of cases? Oh, now I did this one backwards. But that does seem to fit. But... So Captain Spears doesn't like the lines on the label. I don't either, but it doesn't really cover the label. Hmm. Let me flip it around again. Sorry about the reflection. Trying my best. Yeah, I think I like it this way. I think I like it with the lines on the back and the clear case on the front. See the top pretty good. Yeah. Whereas this one, it kind of sorta cuts off the label. Yeah, I like it this way. I think this is how I'm going to use mine. And now, what do we like better, smoke or clear? So many questions. So, I guess they would sit this way. So that the arrow's still pointing down. This is out. I like the clear better, I think, for these. Unless I bought a case to match these, and then I would like these better. But I think I like the clear better. I think that's what I'm going to use for my Genesis games. Obviously, there's no right answer. It's whatever the heck you feel like, but... so... sits down on it like that. Yeah, I like these. I think these are my favorites. There's links in the main description. Let me double check though, because I know I was just talking about them, and I put a link to all of these different things. I'm not sure exactly which one for this. So scroll through a minute here. I'm finding all of the case runs, but not these. Wait, got it. I'll drop that in the chat right now. And it's also part of the link in the main description. You just have to scroll through a couple. But so these are for Genesis, Famicom, and MSX shells. I could see. All right. Let me see how buried my stuff is. If I can get to a Famicom game, I will show that definitely. Oh. I see something NES related here. I have right behind where I stand for these live streams, I have just floor to ceiling boxes with all my stuff in it. All right, I found an EverDrive. Yeah, all right. Got it. Perfect. These aside. The EverDrive isn't going to fit. I think it's too tall. Try Tetris. That seems like a perfect fit. Grab more of these. I'm trying to see if there's any specific way to reorient these for different. No, I think the way I liked the best before is the best way to do it. Let's see what that. Yeah, funny enough. Okay, I should have just looked at this post. The post has them oriented both ways as well. So this looks like put it in however however you feel like it. I feel like Voltar said that to me at least once. So I think I'm gonna keep my Genesis games in the clear one and my Famicom games in the smoke one, just so I could immediately look at them and see the difference. Are we to angle these so there's no glare? See if I can get creative for a second here. No, I don't have anything. But sorry. All right, so I like these. These are cool. Let me see the price on these. Um, so it's $1.50 each. I think somebody just posted that in the chat. Sorry, but yeah, that's a very fair price for these. I'm happy I got this now. Thinks that the EverDrive is just too high, but respectfully, if anything had to have been scratched up, I would have wanted it to be the EverDrive, only because you could just go buy another EverDrive case and it's still technically a completely original EverDrive. There's nothing, there's nothing not stock about it. It's still from Crix. You can get them in a couple different colors from Stone Age Gamer. So, yeah, that's no problem there, in my opinion. Very carefully, getting everything back in the box so I don't ruin it. And there's a few other things Retro Gamer Store sent that I'll show quickly before going to get the Retrobrite thing. I don't think I might not know what any of these are, to be honest with you. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-pin connector. This looks like something for a Raspberry Pi. I don't think I know what this is. I feel like I wrote an article about it, though. I feel like there's something in there that uh, something that Retro Gamer Store did that either Ronnie or I talked about in the past year that had to do with this. Let me open up my my chat with Retro Gamer Store and see. Sorry, just a moment. So, all right, he said he also put some cartridge projectors in there. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I'm sure it's on the website. I'm sure we covered it, and I'm sure I loved it when I remembered what it was, but not really knowing at the moment. Let me read the chat and see if anybody figured out what it was. Is that a Pi compute module? Yeah, I think that might very well be. Well, that's pretty cool. I think that's going to a friend of mine. I think Retro Gamer Store sent me a bunch of stuff in this box so I could share it. My hand's still all discolored. All right, I think we killed enough time. Let me go see. Let me get that out of direct sunlight and see what we got. I will have. Oh, wait. There's one more thing. I think I'm just gonna respectfully call this a teaser because I'm sending this to a friend of mine who's gonna probably include this in a video. So you can figure out what that is. Awesome, but I don't like to do that. I don't like to. I know something you don't know, but I think I'm gonna let my friend reveal that in their video. So got isopropyl ready. I got Q-tips ready, and I'm gonna go out and uh get that retrobrited thing. GPI Mate Plus. Thank you, Daniel. I think that's exactly what that might be. All right. Be right back. Eh, sorta. Sorta, but not really. So I'm gonna wipe this stuff off. I guess I'll try again. Satoshi Matrix, 15 minutes of retrobriting will not have any noticeable difference. Respectfully, that is not what I found when I was messing with other stuff a few years ago. In direct sunlight in the summertime, you could start to see pretty big changes. And more importantly than that, you could come back every 5 minutes and it's nothing, 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 nothing. And then all of a sudden there's a big color change. So I could be wrong, but in the testing that I did, I found that I don't really know what builds up. Maybe it's like a UV ray thing. I don't really know. But I definitely remember going out there every once in a while and seeing, small change, and then holy crap, big change. Cleaned all that stuff off. I guess let me try popping this thing out too. Probably should have done that in the first place, but I felt like with a small test bed, I didn't have to worry about leaving this thing in direct sunlight. But let me pop just this off. Oh, always put the top on your isopropyl or it'll just eventually show retrobrites like 3+ hours. No, my friend, no, it's definitely not. Like I could promise you that it's not. It's not always. If you're doing a UV in a UV box that you've made yourself and you can control exactly what's going on, probably. But in direct sunlight, there's a lot of other factors, and that's yet another reason why I don't want to just blindly recommend people do that. Go. Pop that off. Oop. Lost the LED cover. All right, so let's try this again. I'm gonna get some plastic because I don't want anything else in my house ending up bleached like my hand. Actually, you know what? It's like a perfectly good piece of plastic right here. So Satoshi Matrix said that I should submerge the plastic completely in 50% water, 50% Sally 40 volume liquid, and that's what this is. I have not tried that, so you might be right. You might be completely right about that. Um, Now, what you did say was that because I put a Q-tip over it and only put a small amount, that it would quickly evaporate, but it didn't. I absolutely did, when I was just wiping it off, wipe off a lot of the gunk, and in fact, the same amount of gunk that's on it. So, um, any suggestions? Keep firing away. But anything that I'd say that I've tried, I've definitely tried. I've not, this isn't just a guess. So, show, bathe it. Yep, that's exactly what I plan on doing right now. Make sure that's evenly spread. All right, let's try it again, completely gooped up. I'm gonna put this outside and then scrub my hands again, so hopefully I won't be covered in goop. Almost back, having some technical difficulties. All right. Y'all are gonna get a kick out of this, but I just put that outside and went and washed my hands, and my skin still is bleached in a little spot. And I came back over to put my headset on, and I looked outside, and I saw, hey, where's the thing? It's gone. For the first time all day, the wind kicked up and just blew the part across my porch. Luckily, it didn't go off the side onto the street, so I just had to recenter that and then rewash my hands again. So, yeah, definitely another thing to worry about when retrobriting in the sun. I think with the UV box, it's wildly different. I think people like Voltar, who built the UV box just to do stuff like this, he always seems to have a pretty good experience with it. So I think it's using the sun that I seem to always have problems with versus just you know, doing like good old Voltar and using a real box for it. So there was a question up before I wanted to answer. Let me just scroll through these real quick. Uh yeah, when retrobriting always anchor your stuff. Yeah, just was just reminded of that. Let me while we're waiting for that, let me swap some of this case stuff around. Here's another O2 that I had that's mostly stock. Let me pull this apart real quick. Hope it was on the right side. The one thing that I have seen that was pretty interesting is somebody took glass, like glassware, glass Tupperware, whatever you want to call it, filled it with hydrogen peroxide, and then put the console in upside down. So the glass was facing the sun, and then the console was facing the, um, uh, yeah. So the glass was facing the sun. So when you put it in upside down, but then you placed it in the sun upside down, it was right side up, and that seemed to get pretty good results. But I've never tried that myself. That's probably something I'll give a shot in the new place. But yeah, the elements are always unpredictable. Um, did I see some models of iPhones can die when in contact with helium? No, no, I didn't. That's kind of funny though. Um, Retro Vegan, do I have a one chip? Yeah, both of these are one chip O2s, coincidentally enough. They're all the same quality though. This one is one that's completely stock. It has a recap with, if we could see inside there, with through-hole capacitors, not surface mount, because I ordered the wrong ones from Console 5. Honestly, the only reason. And this also has a new voltage regulator. It has the new capacitor. Um, and that's pretty much it. I had the 75 ohm attenuation resistors on here, but then I took it off to do an experiment on something and then just never put them back in. So I figured I'd leave these mostly stock. Ash said some people working around MRI scanners found their iPhones were randomly dying. It's a real thing. Uh, you know, I actually did a lot of work. My old job was designing computers for medical environments, and a lot of the stuff that you find there is pretty interesting. Like, you could never do a lot of the wireless stuff that you would do here because it can't interfere with, when I say here, meaning like in a, just in any kind of residential area, because it could interfere with some of the stuff. There's standards that are in place to try to help and prevent stuff like that. So, eh. Monty, any thoughts on what I should do with a one chip that died after I plugged in backwards polarity? Yeah. Um, try to find. Let me get this in focus for you. That right there, F1, is a fuse. That's what you're going to want to replace. Console 5 has them for sale. And I've done that a few times where I've accidentally ruined stuff because I popped the fuse on it. Yeah, it should be good. Satoshi Matrix, when retrobriting, try submerging and then cover the top with cling wrap. The hotter the water and peroxide, the faster the retrobriting process will go. Anchor down floating small parts. So the only thing with covering it in plastic that I found was that sometimes I got uneven retrobriting. And once again, this is always in the sun. I haven't had the opportunity to do it not in the sun, in a UV box or something. But I've got an uneven layering, and it was often right where the plastic was stuck, the cling wrap was stuck to the plastic. So it wouldn't be a stretch to assume that that caused some of the uneven discoloration, but I've also had people tell me that's not a thing at all. Uneven could be a bunch of other different reasons. So I'm not really sure what the true answer to that is, but I'm always cautious of that. Backstreet's back. How do I repair PS3 where the chip literally exploded when plugging in without a step down? I don't know. That's gonna be a lot, or PSX. That's still gonna be a lot different. You could still try the fuse. It's not gonna hurt and it's not expensive, but that might be a little worse. James Dillman uses a piece of plexi in their UV box to keep things down. That's pretty cool. I think once I actually have a house and a shed and just places to put crap like that, like having a shed is the perfect place for something like a UV box because I'm only going to use it a couple times a year. It might get messy and I could experiment with stuff like this. So, or not even a UV box necessarily, but just even a box built for retrobriting that I could leave in the sun or something like that. Right. Oh, thing in first. I did it again. Backwards. Come on. There we go. Submerging is the key. Simply put the cling wrap on the very top of the bucket, not or on the very of the bucket. I think you mean on the top of the bucket, not directly over the surface of the item. Oh, all right. Well, that definitely makes sense. In the right spot. All right. Try this. Make sure it works. Always remember to do that. I cannot tell you how many times I've done a very complicated thing that was probably out of my skill level, but I pulled it off, and then bolt down every single bolt, turn it on, and it doesn't turn on, and I realized I did like the simplest mistake. I plugged something in upside down or whatever else. So, which it's always a good thing if that's the mistakes that you worry about. Cool, but I'm gonna need a controller too. That's over here. You know what might be cool for the new place is Bluetooth headsets. So basically like this, but Bluetooth. Could anybody recommend one? I never really used it in the city because there's so much wireless interference. I don't want to use wireless anything around here. I got my monitor plugged in um, right next to me. You can't see it, but it seems to be working. Steel Series Arctix 9X, huh? Let me add that to my Amazon cart and I'll check that out later. Hopefully it's not one of those, incredibly expensive ones. For some reason my mouse isn't highlighting anything in the chat properly. Always technical difficulties. There we go. And the SteelSeries Arctic 9X is $200. Well, maybe I'll get that after I'm settled in and I decide if I really want it. But yeah, that's I think that's something that would be really neat. That way, in the new place, I could walk around and stay on stream when I'm trying to figure out what parts I need. All right, so I just plugged it in. I checked the controller. This thing's perfect. I didn't mess anything up. Everything looks good. If I'm looking for value, Audio Technica, yeah, I have. I've been using these for years for recording for music, and this is also how I listened when I edit the audio in the podcasts and in my videos. I use that. Love them. I also had a pair of Sonys that I used for a while. I don't know what happened to it. I think one of my old band members ended up with it. But those were great too, and I also liked how flat the sound was, so that I could I didn't have to worry about for mixing audio or anything like that. It wasn't like a high bass boost or something. So when I was mixing music, which I'm terrible at, by the way, but when I had to get the demos prepared so I could tell people what here's what I want this to sound like, that's how I did it. So I think this went here. And I'm just taking this back off the smoke clear one because I'll pack that back up for after I move. And I have plans for this one, but the other one's going to a friend of mine, so I want to get that finished off, get the Retrobrite done. I actually don't think it needed the retrobriting, but I just thought it would make for a more interesting stream if I messed around with it. Or if I, horribly messed it up. That'd probably make for a much more interesting stream than if I did it right. I guess this is also a pretty good demonstration that these new cases are durable and are able to withstand unplugging and replugging like this. Oh, I forgot the spring again. Because that's something that, if these were cheap plastic, you wouldn't really be able to screw and unscrew it more than once or twice, and it would start to kind of come apart. And the fact that these aren't even budging, I mean, they still feel solid the whole time, I think that's a very good sign. Okay. Yeah, retro vegan. I had a few people I knew over the years, including myself a long time ago, who sold their collections for emulators, and everybody I know has regretted it, including me. I did it at a time where um, I had a couple of original Xboxes that I was able to mod for emulation, and they were awesome, and they worked great. I had a good time with them, but at the time that I did it, I guess it was the right move. Because I basically sold off all of my original consoles to get two Xboxes, and then I used them as media centers throughout my whole house. So, it wasn't the worst move, but I definitely regret doing it. I wish I had just held on to all of my original stuff. Because who knows what models consoles I had. Maybe I had a one chip, maybe I didn't. No clue. All right, thanks for stopping by, Axel. Thanks for the super chats too. Really nice of you. Oh, did that. So I'm just putting back together the original SNES shell. That's all somebody was asking. Yeah, so Retro Vegan brought up a point about people who were selling their game collections for flash carts. Everybody I know's done it's regretted it because once you've started the game, once you've got past the second level, it's the same. But there's something to be said if you grew up with this stuff for the tactile feedback of plugging in their controller, plugging in their cartridge, and and really just having it be the same experience. Now, if you're younger and you didn't grow up with this stuff and you really just say, hey, I like these games, I couldn't give a shit about nostalgia, yeah, it's totally understandable. But for everybody that had these growing up and that it was either their original collection or they'd saved up and, over the years and got the games that they always wanted but never could afford or find, those are the people that have always regretted selling it. And it's not ever at first. At first, it's like, oh, made a few $100 and now I was able to just consolidate everything. But they eventually always come back and think, that wasn't a good idea. Okay, here is just a completely stock Super Nintendo. Back to the way it was. Let me throw this back together. And I'll go out. I don't think it's been enough time for the Retrobrite to work, and it did fall over, and the sun's changing, but I'll go back out. Actually, you know what? Let me check these right now. Be right back. Yeah, that was a good move. The shadow had changed again. All right, and we're back. Totally stock Super Nintendo. Really good condition. Been refurbished. This is actually something I suggest most people, if it's their favorite console, start doing. And that, you know, proactively. Just, I recapped this one. I added the new voltage regulator. I added the capacitor that helps with the ghosting on one chips. I took out, but I originally had the 75 ohm attenuation in here, and it all came out great. And it didn't need it, right? I wasn't like having issues with the console. I wasn't worried about anything. It's just one of these things that now I never have to worry about it again. I took my time. I did a really good job. Everything came out great. Oh, that one doesn't. That was the wrong one. That one doesn't match. There we go. I guess the only other thing I could clean up on the original is there's still some of that sticker residue. The ones that said, power switch must be off before loading or removing a game pack. Thank you, Nintendo. We knew that. Even as kids, we knew that. There we go. So that one's back. This one we're waiting on the retrobrited fronts, even though it was totally fine. I probably would have never noticed it again. What to do about that screw, though? That's tough. That's really tough. Anybody have any ideas? I don't have any screw tap kits, and even if I did, it would be packed away. Let me see if I can get this in view. Here. Way harder to do this on camera than you'd think. There we go. Yeah, so that's not even sticking up. Toshi Matrix, I would suggest simply leaving it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only problem is where it's located, right here. So there's always going to be a little bit of the lip in front. Super glue a thin piece of rod? I mean, maybe. Drive a longer screw through behind it. It might crack the post. Well, I think for the purpose of this, I'm probably going to just grab the other case top. One of these was supposed to go to Ben. I might I might throw Ben a couple bucks and have him just take care of it with his tools. What a dick move. Sorry, Ben. Solder the screw head back on, then twist it out. I've never tried anything like that. Billy Elliot, when they tried something like that on a car, they just weld a screw to it. Yeah, definitely. But unfortunately, no way you can pull it off on this without melting the plastic. I always forget the spring. Shocked it hasn't gone firing across the desk at some point. JB Weld could help too. Yeah, it's not a muffler. Oh, hey, Smoke Monster's in here. What's up, man? I haven't talked to you in a while. Miss you, buddy. Gotta catch up once all the craziness ends and I actually have time to think. Alright, so I'm going to gift this slightly used shell to Ben. Sorry, Ben. I also got a bunch of other stuff for him, so I don't think he's going to be too disappointed. So I'll pack up that smoke shell. That was really great too. I honestly don't know which one I like better. I think I like the clear ones better for the for the cartridges. That's these for anybody just joining the stream. I think I like that better for the cartridges, but I honestly don't know which I like better for the consoles. I think they both look really awesome. I think people would be happy with either. Shadow Mask, don't forget to pick up that digital microscope. Oh, you bet your butt. In fact, Ryan from Castlemania bought one of those just based on that recommendation. So that's actually pretty cool. All right, boxing this back up for Ben. Sleeve Bob is so PG. I love it. Funny you say that. I actually have been cutting down on swearing on videos because some people do get offended, and I also feel like if I swear in a video, I want it to count. But an interesting side effect of that has been that when I'm out with my friends, I need to vent out my frustrations, and I end up swearing a lot more than I ever did before. So, yeah, I get pretty foul sometimes, but never the bad words, just you know, the medium bad words. All right, back there. So once again, anybody joining, you have to hold that in place because on the original SNES, it slid into a slot, which didn't really make sense to. I mean, I can understand why Retro Gamer Store didn't try to copy that. It would just be pointless. It would just be more work and a more complicated plastic install for the same thing. And the only difference is you have to hold it down in place for the spring to work. So it seemed like kind of a no-brainer to me why they did it that way. It's scruffy. Good job to keep the language clean. It's challenging. I let it fly on Jimmy's streams sometimes because I think it makes him laugh, and I don't think he's offended by it. Robert Hernandez. I have a solution to your swearing problem. A new podcast called No Disrespect, where you get hammered and call bullshit on everything that's wrong with the retro scene. I would be canceled before the podcast even finished being recorded. That would be a hard no. A lot of bullshit that happens behind the scenes, and it'd be very easy for me to go too far. The good news is there's also a lot of really amazing people. So, and in fact, I would say the good people very, very far outweigh the ones that I would start swearing about. So it's always good to know that part of it. But yeah, I don't think that'd be a smart move unless I found out like I had a week to live and I wanted to go hard, drop the mic on my way out or something. Then I might do something like that. If I ever did find out I had like a week to live, I would totally do something like that. And the problem is, I'd be tempted to do a serious one and one that's silly. Like, I would totally do one where I look dead at the camera and be like, I only have a week to live, so I need to tell you all Voltar is a fraud. It's my hands in all of his videos all these years. He can't even solder. Like, I would think that would be. I think that would be funny as hell, but then, probably more confusing in the long run than anything else. Ash, I'm one of the good people, right? Hell yeah, Ash. Absolutely. Show just paid me $2 to drop a fuck bomb, so fuck you very much, Show. Alright, power and reset. Everything's lined up. We are still waiting for the other retrobriting stuff, but it looks amazing. I'll do another look around here while we're waiting for that. So let me get this more focus here. All right. So that's the coax audio mod. Uh, the gray looks fine back there. I was wondering if I was not going to like the fact that this isn't clear, but I don't think I care. I mean that in a nice way. Um, I think if it was clear, I would appreciate it, but you would also then have to desolder the DC jack and deal with it after that. So I don't think, I mean, this, as you can see, if you have a little bit of patience and a decent screwdriver that's the right size, anybody could do this. Whereas desoldering this back plate, I mean, maybe if they ever wanted to sell separately a piece like this for like $1 or something, I don't know. But that's yeah. But for anybody asking, this RCA jack, so this the digital audio mod that I think Bordy did the board for a few years ago, or many years ago now, requires you to cut the RF hole to a square, but you get SPDIF audio out, and it works perfect. But Firebrand X did one that you could do both. And I chose to use the RCA coax audio because you don't need to cut anything. You just use the same hole. I didn't even tighten that down too much, so it won't even scratch the plastic if you ever wanted to put it back the way it was. But yeah, I chose that just because it's a no-cut mod. No other reason whatsoever. And then on back, we have, you can see the Voltars mod. This is one of his older boards. Same exact quality as the newer ones. So if you happen to have one of these, don't worry, you're not missing anything. He just did a few different board revision layouts and stuff like that. Try to get a side shot here. That's looking good. Wizards with Machinery, stereo, dual mono. No, it's digital audio, so it's full stereo mod. The only thing it doesn't work with is Super Game Boy and the MSU1 audio because they generate their own audio chip that doesn't get processed digitally. But no, it's full stereo mod. And games with that faux surround mode come out really great. How could you get stereo from one single RCA jack? I'll show you. Actually, I have it sitting right next to me. Um, So here is an HDMI audio extractor. I use these all the time. And HDMI in, you select your settings, and on the back, it's all digital. So HDMI out, SPDIF, and then coax digital is pretty much the same. It just it sends a digital signal over a single RCA connection. So the reason you can get two channels out of that one is because it's a digital signal going over it. So yeah, and this one too also has a 3.5 millimeter left and right out. That's why I like this because you could use HDMI in to every single choice of audio out. And when I use my DataPath Vision card, I use the coax audio out to go into the coax audio in of my M Audio card. So you can get a pretty decent recording that way. Is this shell a fingerprint magnet? That is a very good question. So I'm going to go grab the thing that's been sitting outside for a while. I don't expect a large change, but I also don't want a large change. I don't want to go too far and ruin the plastic. I'm expecting it just to be the slightest bit lighter than we saw. But let me grab that, clean it up, and then I will test for fingerprints. I don't want to put my dirty hands on it now too much, and then we'll check it out. So just give me like 2 minutes. Alright, sorry it took so long, but I washed and rewashed this thing like 4 times to make sure I didn't get any of that salon cream on me, on the other plastics that are going to be in here. But yeah, it's definitely lighter. I mean, that's exactly what I was going for. I didn't want to risk ruining it. I didn't want to leave it in the sun too much. I don't have a UV chamber to control heat and everything else. I just wanted to kind of clean up a little bit and get and just get some of the discoloration off, and that came out perfect. That was exactly what I was hoping for. I've seen some of the videos that you're talking about, or at least I've seen parts of them, and I don't think that YouTuber ever shows what it looks like a year later, do they? Because that's certainly a big factor that so many of these people don't talk about. And show, I see you tried to post a link. YouTube has it set uh, to not allow any links to go through, and I honestly don't know how to re-enable that. My apologies. Get it in the correct orientation this time. How many people here working on a Super Nintendo have broken that flex cable at one point? Usually it peels up at the end and the fingers come off. It's pain. Guess I must not have aligned that properly. Let me take this out and back in. Did so well the first couple times I did that on stream. Huh? Darn it. Alright. Again. There we go. Alright, so the final two things. I'll do the fingerprint test now. And let me zoom in for you just so you can see this. Yeah, I'd call that properly zoomed. So my hands are clean. I don't really see anything. Do you? I see the reflection of. Let me get it up to my eyes real close, but no. The only thing I'm seeing is the reflection of the metal underneath. There are no fingerprint issues on this whatsoever. That's really cool. Oh, I'm really glad somebody asked that. That's very cool. Where's my other case go? I wanted to show it next to it. So the only thing it doesn't seem to have are these rubber. Well, let me zoom back out. The only thing it doesn't seem to have are the rubber feet. Uh, so these are the same up here. There's no rubber feet here. So that would be nice to have something like that. They weren't in the box or anything. It's not a necessity at all. It's just one other little detail, and it's not a complaint, by the way. Like I really like this case. I think it's very cool. It's just something to note. Uh, BlackRock 18 has the quality of the plastic. I just put a cheap clear ghost case for my original Xbox, and the plastic is very brittle. No, this feels very close to the original. This feels very, very sturdy. I know which ones you're talking about, and I've seen PlayStation 2 and Xbox cases that are very, very, very thin, and it feels fragile. It doesn't feel like a sturdy thing that I would trust. All right, so let's do this again. Let's all cross our fingers and hope I don't have to send Ben two cases, two broken cases. Lining it up. And I'm starting with the controller port side. It can't tell if it's going in at an angle or not. See if I can get it. By the way, anybody who's never tried anything like this before, try unscrewing and screwing in your consoles, and then try doing it underneath a camera when you're trying to get it at the right angle. It's suddenly a lot harder than you would have expected. All right, perfect. Other one. I didn't forget to put anything back, right, everybody? I don't want to get these things in and realize I forgot like one of the metal pieces or the plastic or something. And also for anybody just joining, or anybody who missed the part before, I broke the head of a screw, so I'm trying to be incredibly careful when doing it on this one and making sure that it's lined up perfectly straight, that I'm not at an angle. But once you've done it once, you've set the thread inside the plastic, so it's only going to be weird like this the first time you do it. After that, it should just be as easy as an original Super Nintendo, the first time that you took it apart. All right, no separation in the plastic there. Blow through the rest of them, but the rest are way less important because if there's separation in the back because the screw broke, absolutely not a big deal. You're not going to be able to see that ever. Okay, fine. 3 more to go, and then the stream's almost over. That one went in super easy. Cool. All right, last 2. Monty, don't end the stream, then I'll have to be productive. I honestly had no intentions of this being a 2.5-hour stream. I thought I was going to slap one thing in a case and be done with it. But this was a lot of fun, and I liked experimenting between the different cases. I love that we just randomly decided to find our bottle of Voltar and retrobrite something. Well, not truly retrobrite something, but brighten up the front in an incredibly safe way where you don't have to worry about the plastic getting brittle over years. But still, this turned out to be really fun. Probably not fun for anybody wanting to rewatch this. I'm certainly not going to put a post on RetroRGB about it because I wouldn't suggest anybody watch me for 2.5 hours unscrew and rescrew Super Nintendo cases. But it's different when you're hanging out, reading the chat, and kind of being a part of it. All right, let me go around and just show all angles. No separation. Everything lines up beautifully. Very high quality, thick plastic. I was not being gentle just there. And that, as much as I don't want to ruin something like this, I'd rather do it now when we're on stream so we could warn everybody, and it's working great. So no complaints, but there are a few things to point out. It would be very nice if they gave a new piece of plastic for the controller ports, or if they made a second kit available, as you just saw with mine. I was able to just put a little bit of Retrobrite on this, leave it out in the sun for, it was probably a half hour total between the 2 times, and it definitely made it lighter to the point where, like, at a normal distance, not zoomed in with a 4K camera, but at a normal distance sitting from your TV, you would never notice that it had the slightest bit of discoloration. But I think if it did, I think if it did have another plastic piece, that would have been very cool. Even a clear one, same color. I think clear actually would have been really nice. Um, so that's definitely something. Maybe they'll offer a new kit in the future. I really like how we use the original power and reset buttons. I think that's a very cool thing, but maybe they could consider an option for that, a paid option. I don't think any of these kits should come with these. I think it's awesome to use the original, but I think that that should be something they consider. I do think the controller port strip should have been part of this. I think that would have really added to it. Um, live and learn. Nobody's perfect. And back on the other hand, I think if the people wanted to, that should also be a paid option because I don't think you should tell the general public who, may or may not be familiar with soldering to have to desolder this thing in order to remove the DC jack, switch the new one. So maybe a paid option in the future for that would be cool. But, while I'd like all of my consoles to look good from all angles, like I have no problem with this. It looks totally fine. Um, so I don't know. I'll leave that opinion up to all of you. The only other thing, it would be very complicated to create another internal mechanism like this one. So while I don't mind this at all, and while the internal part of these are almost never going to be yellowed, so even in something like this giant turd, like the gray part stayed gray, the stuff inside stayed the right color because it was covered. So I think that's always going to be fine. But I think that could be another paid option, something that maybe you pay extra for a full custom inside with new whatever else. I think most people are really going to like the look of the gray. So um, that's kind of it. So the only complaint, I guess, at all, I think there should have been a clear strip that came with this. No other complaints. That is the right move. This is probably the right move. Um, and same thing with the buttons. So overall, I'm really impressed. Everything came out great, and of course now we have to power it up because I want to make sure I didn't break it, which would be funny. But this with the move next week, depending on what is happening, the who, what, when, and why of all of this stuff, I'm either going to be streaming right away because there's not going to be much else to do, and I'm not going to have all my stuff completed, completely undone. So being able to stream versus do a high production video would be easier. So depending on what happens, all of y'all lovely people are either not going to see me for like 3 weeks, or it's going to be the same weeklies and the same um, uh, stream type of things. I'll even stream like rebuilding the new office and everything, all depending on, am I going to get internet? Am I going to, you know, am I going to have a background, or if it's just going to be a pile of boxes? It's probably going to be a pile of boxes. So, Satoshi Matrix, it would be very fun to see me retrobrite that turd Super Famicom. I completely and totally agree, and I think that when the new case comes out, the Super Famicom clear case, that I'm gonna absolutely be doing that to this one, knowing that let's just say I completely ruin the Super Famicom Nintendo writing on that by doing it. This case is destroyed. There's no fixing this case. It's done. I'm going to be reusing the power eject and top buttons and the inside. So retrobriting this, even if it's a massive failure, I think that would be a great experiment. But I do want to try to get it right. All right, it's off camera. I'm not going to bother doing the capture because I'm just showing everything works, the controller works. But what I will actually show, that's what it looks like with the LED light on. That's pretty cool. I like that. It looks even better with the controller plugged in. You have the contrast of everything nice and lit up. That's really cool. Yeah. Yeah, it looks even better with it. Awesome. Satoshi Matrix, I agree. I'm gonna do some more experiments with it. In fact, I think that Super Famicom case is gonna be the perfect thing to do some experiments with it. So yeah, I'll absolutely do some experimenting and see what I get with it. Just want to make sure that I just want to make sure that I do it right, and I also want to make sure that if I do anything on stream other than what I did today, I'm clear about it. Because I do just have a problem with people who don't feel a sense of responsibility. They're just like, yeah, let's throw this dishwasher or this motherboard in a dishwasher and see what happens. Hey, it works. You should do this to yours. And 2 weeks later, they're dead, and so are 1,000 people's other motherboards because they followed them. I do feel a sense of responsibility when I test things like this to make sure that I'm giving decent advice. And to at least stop for a moment and say, hey, could this be a problem? And wiping a little bit of Salon 40 on the end of this piece of plastic and leaving it outside for a half hour is about as safe as it gets. So that's certainly something that I was comfortable showing. But overall, this is a win. Retro Gamer Store did an amazing job on this. There's still no fingerprints, and I've been manhandling this, screwing it all in. So huge win. My apologies to Ben Fong for sending him a case with the screw in it. I guess he'll deal with that next week. And yeah, any questions from the chat before I go? I'll hang out for another couple of minutes just in case, but this has been really, really awesome. I had such a good time doing this and hanging out with all of you. Let me text Ben now. I just texted, been talking about you on stream. Kyosho, was that an original screw that broke, or did it come with new screws? It was all original screws that I had taken out. And in fact, everything was used from the original except this Super Nintendo thing, which you don't need on the new one. So all of that stuff was taken out. And I assume that what happened with the screws was that the screws are just old and brittle over the years. I probably took that console apart. I'm not exaggerating. It's probably at least 100 times since I got it. So the fact that the screw broke doesn't worry me at all, unless any of you have manhandled your consoles the way I have over the years. But if you basically just have your console that maybe you took apart to do an RGB bypass or a digital audio mod or to recap it or just to clean it or something, if you have just very basic use on yours, I don't ever expect that to happen. It was really just for it. No, it does not come with new screws at all. You're supposed to use everything from the other part. Also, about the motherboards and the dishwasher thing, I've seen people take old dishwashers, bring them outside, wire it up in their backyard, and use distilled water, and that is 100% fine. Especially if you like hit it with compressed air afterwards, and even leave it under a UV lamp to dry or something like that. That is totally, totally safe to do because it's not the water that's the problem. It's the impurities in the water that left over time oxidize and rot things out. And when you're on a motherboard and you have all these components on it, those impurities get underneath the components in the microscopic level. So even blowing it out with hot air or with compressed air won't really work. So when you use distilled water, and you run your dishwasher, at least once before doing it, but then you just use distilled water, then maybe even, if you need to give it a quick alcohol bath afterwards with a scrub brush, then blow it out and leave it under a UV light. That's safe. And I think that's where a lot of people get the misconceptions from, that it's safe to do that. That, and I've seen a lot of people from the 80s till now throw their expensive big keyboards in the dishwasher, but that's a little different. And while I don't know if I'd fully recommend doing that, there's different consequences for that aren't as severe as a motherboard. So, um, Chris Larson, I wish the new case for Genesis said Genesis and high definition graphics and not Mega Drive 16-bit. I think they're still working on that. I think that's going to be an overlay or a sticker, and they all stay clear. Ah, Ben is here. Ben, I have one of these cases for you that Retro Gamer Store sent, but it includes a little bonus, my friend. One of my screws broke off when doing it, when screwing it down, and it stuck right in the head. So I'm gonna give you one of the ones to screw in because I know you have all the tools, the tools to be able to get it out. Sorry, man. Sorry, I'll look you up with some other stuff, but yeah. Sorry, dude. Thanks for jumping on. I guess there is a little bit more play still on this side. I wonder if the case settled it all a bit. All right. Ben, you might have two cases. Let me try to tighten this down a little bit more. Yeah, that actually is perfect. Yeah, there we go. That last little half turn. I wonder if it settled in or anything like that because it's brand new plastic. Anyway, all right. I think I'm out. Oh, Ray's here. What's up, Ray? Sorry, you caught right. You caught right at the end. So I'm out now. I'm not going to drag anybody out anymore. But thank you all very much. Really appreciate everybody coming by. Thank you for, of course, the super chats and all of that. It's always amazingly appreciated. And I'll get back to everybody soon. I'm gonna do the Q&As tomorrow, and then that's it until I move. And who knows, you might see me on Tuesday or Wednesday, or you might not see me for a couple weeks. We'll figure it out. But thank you all very much, and I'll see you soon.